Good afternoon. My name is Sheila Lamb, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC Network. For those of you that are not familiar with our organization, the Virginia Small Business Development Center is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 26 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local communities. Our one-on-one advising services are available at no charge. Today's webinar, Simple Cyber Habits for Solo Businesses, is presented by the Virginia SBDC Network. Please save the date for our next cybersecurity session, which is happening on August 14th. Cybersecurity in a changing regulatory environment, what small businesses need to know. And I'll drop that registration into the chat momentarily. We are recording today's presentation, and it will be posted on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Due to the large number of participants, everyone's microphone is muted and the chat feature is turned off. But if you have questions during the presentation, you can type those into the Q&A box and we will address them at the end of the session. We have also enabled the live transcript function, which you can show or hide via your own meeting controls. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter for today's session, Kiana Gainey. Kiana is a 20-plus year IT and cybersecurity industry veteran and has served as Chief Executive Officer for SecureTech 360, located in Springfield, Virginia, since its inception in 2010. She is also the Cyber Industry Specialist for the Virginia SBDC. Welcome, Kiana.
Thank you, Sheila, and welcome to everyone. Hope everyone's having a great day. Well, we'll just dive right on in. So today's presentation will be really tailored towards the solo business owner, helping you put together simple cyber habits so that you can protect your digital life, even while you're wearing all the multiple hats in your small business. Next slide. So yes, so today's we'll cover some simple tips and tricks, and then also give you some additional information that you can implement and resources and next steps that you can implement into your small business to help you be able to navigate the cybersecurity landscape, but also to protect your small business. Next slide. So a little bit about myself. I have been an entrepreneur for about 20 years. I started SecureTech 360 in 2010, and I was actually my first employee. I was my first HR representative. I was business development. I wore so many different hats. So I understand exactly where you're at if you are just starting a business, or you're thinking about starting a business, or you are your only employee and you are trying to find that healthy balance on being a CEO, but also, making sure that you do and implement things in a secure fashion. I hope that today's presentation will give you some tips and tricks and some resources to help you do that. Next slide. So why does cybersecurity matter for you as a solo entrepreneur? Several reasons. As a small business owner, you are your own IT department. You are your cyber analyst. You are your cyber expert. You are your HR. You are your business development. Depending on what hat you're wearing for the day, you are all of those things. And one thing that we've seen on the rise, if you're even watching the news in any capacity, or if you're getting some of the internet feeds, that cybercrime is targeting everyone, not just big companies. 60% of small business closed within 6 months because of a major cyber attack. The good news is you don't need to be an expert to protect yourself. There are small things that you can do to put into place to help you be able to defend if something happens. So you can set certain alerts that can come to you to let you know if something's trying to infiltrate your infrastructure, or if it's just your tablet or even your mobile phone. You're like, I don't have an infrastructure. I just have an iPad or a personal computer and maybe my mobile phone. You can put things in place to be able to help you be able to navigate your cybersecurity concerns while we're trying to do those things like, grow the business, protect the business, keep our customers happy. This is one thing off of that checklist that we can also add to help us become, be cyber vigilant, but also be cyber smart. Next slide. So, like I talked about earlier, cyber attacks are evolving. They're targeting small businesses 43% of the cyber attacks now are definitely just targeting small businesses. Some of the common threats that you're using are the phishing emails. You've seen them, they come in your inbox. They may look very similar to something that you're probably either using your infrastructure or maybe people that you've been corresponding back and forth. And when you look at the email, there's usually probably some misspelled words. The email that's being sent to you, the email address may seem a little off. If you are handling what I've seen a lot, even with small businesses that are handling sensitive information, ransomware, say, well, I'm just a small business. Why would someone want to take information that I have? Some hackers are very sophisticated. They may just be looking for sensitive information on actual people. They may be looking for credit card information. And it may not seem like something that may be a value to you, but it's a value to them. We're learning a lot of things about data breaches. I mean, every day there are different types of data breaches that are coming out that's interrupting our everyday lives, from, airlines being disrupted to your cell phone. You're noticing that maybe the coverage in your areas that normally would have, better coverage are now having limited coverage, or they're having intermittent issues. Even your internet service providers are sometimes being attacked on a daily basis. We are definitely seeing a lot of this happen in real time. And as we're doing things like remote work, or we're using more cloud tools, it also increases our exposure. Now, although the evolution of technology has provided us with all of these wonderful ways to be able to connect, to be able to do business, and be able to have our workers working in remote settings, or even use cloud tools to help us be able to decrease costs, it also increases exposure. And then the recovery of those costs can also devastate, or, even sometimes be one of the reasons why some small businesses have to close, and even some micro businesses that are just, maybe you're just getting started. So there's some things that you can put into place to be able to help you navigate as we're evolving, as technology is evolving, as we are evolving the way we work, the way we live, and even how we're using some of these tools that are really there meant to help us, but they also increase our exposure as well. Next slide. So some things you can start with just your smartphone. If you're using your smartphone, I know I use my iPhone. My iPhone is like my personal assistant at times. It's my office. Sometimes I use it to check my bank accounts. It's usually my lifeline. It's, if I'm not texting, if I'm not receiving an email from someone, it helps me able to keep it. I remember the evolution of Blackberries, when Blackberries first came on the scene, and we were using them for everything. And we finally were able to have our emails right there at our fingertips. And over time, we've seen the evolution of just phones being able to incorporate in our daily lives, not just necessarily for our business lives, but now in our daily lives. Everyone, I know 12-year-olds that have smartphones, but there are some simple habits that you can put in place to be able to protect you as you're using your smartphone in your small business, or anything in your everyday life. You can create strong pins, or a biometric lock on your phone. Most of those times when we first get the phone out of the box, we're able to set it up. If you're using like an iPhone, you can set up your pin. The pin can it can be a strong pin, and it should be something that's unique to you, that maybe won't be so easily guessed. Or you can even put a biometric lock that can be able to do the same similar feature as well. Turn on auto updates for apps and OSs. Now, there's a caveat with that. If you're using certain apps, I only would advise turning on updates for critical apps that you know that you will probably need to keep updated, and then making sure that when it does pop up, that you do it, in a timely fashion, because most of the times those updates are also some additional security features that are also helping protect you in real time as well. Use device encryption if that's something that you can afford, or something that you have something maybe more sensitive in nature. If you have additional apps or other things running on the phone, if there's an option to put a pin on those additional apps as well, that could be another layer of protection that you can use with your smartphone. What you want to do is layer on your protection. Think about your house. You have your house, you have your front door. Your front door maybe have, a lock. If you put like a special type of lock on there to be able to give you the added protection. Maybe you have additional doors. I know in my home I have 4 different entrances, and so each door, I have a different type of lock depending on where someone can gain access to. So any of my front doors, I also have a different type of lock to be able to give access. And in my other locks, I don't have the same thing. So think about that as you're thinking about how you want to layer your security for your smartphone. And then also do not install apps from unknown sources. I know sometimes we get emails or even from people that we know, like, and trust will say, hey, try this app. If it's from somewhere, an unknown source that you're not sure about, do your research before you download it to your device. I always, anything, even if I get a text message or if I get a strange email, I always do my research to see who is sending the information. And if there's a link of some sort that they want me to click and download, I always copy the link and I put it into the actual browser and to look at the actual link itself to ensure that it's coming from a legitimate website before I just click from an unknown source. So those are some just basic tips that you can use in your everyday life to be cyber vigilant, one, but also to use that multi-layer approach when you're thinking about cybersecurity. Next slide. So you can also lock down all of your online accounts. Use multi-factor authentication, especially for email. If you're logging into your bank, social media, create unique passwords for each account. Now, I'm 50-50 with this, with people using password managers, but if you have a lot of accounts and you have a trouble with remembering those accounts, there are some great password managers out there that you can use to be able to store all of these unique passwords for each of the account. If you're old school, like some folks like myself, if I have passwords that are very complicated, if I write them down, I don't put them underneath my computer desk. I'll put them in a locked. I also have digital locks that are physical locks, safes that are within my organization. I'll lock them in there as well so that I can have another place that I can have access to as well, because computers go down. And so even though I use a lot of the cloud for backups, I also use old school pen and paper, and I also store it somewhere that's not in the same location of where I'm storing my other critical information as well. So those are just simple things that you can use if you're saying, I don't want to use a password manager. You can also do those as another method or a way to be able to lock down your accounts if you have a lot of unique passwords for each of those accounts and you're just trying to keep up with them as well. But I also, if you have the capacity or the capability to use multi-factor authentication for your email, I highly recommend that as well, especially for your banking. I know some of the banking, I use Bank of America, it's automatic. I'll put in my password, they'll send me a unique PIN on my cell phone, and then I'll use that to be able to access my banking. For social media as well, a lot of social media is also using multi-factor authentication. Make sure that if they're not, you can use it internal capability as well for your own social media accounts or any of your online accounts that you're using to run your business as well. Next slide. Again, if you're doing a lot of browsing, I know I do a lot of browsing because I'm using the internet for research for my next client or research on those clients, things that you should watch for, and this develop some safe browsing and email habits. We talked about phishing emails earlier. Sometimes you'll see phishing emails pretending to be things like invoices or client requests or access for your accounts. If it's coming from an unknown source or it's coming out the blue, if you was something that you wasn't anticipating or expecting, check the body of that email with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that it's not coming from a nefarious website, that is also coming from a trusted source as well. Any suspicious links or attachments, most of these emails will always try to get you to go somewhere else. They'll attach some attachments to it for you to click on it. Hover over the links before clicking, never click unknown attachments. Use browser plugins like HTTPS everywhere, or if they have somewhere where you can use privacy mode, use that as well. These are just some great safe browsing and email habits that you can implement. Again, it's not about things that about being super complicated or super expensive. It's about just, creating a mindset where you're always being cyber vigilant and that you're also thinking about cybersecurity with everything that you do. It's about creating newer habits or better habits. And it may be things that you're already doing unconsciously, but this making them a part of your practice. And then I always say, as solo entrepreneurs, as we're growing and we adding our first employee, the habits that we present to them are the habits sometimes that we'll take into the organization. So it starts with you first as well. Next slide. Again, backing up any information that you deem that are critical so that you don't lose your data. There are a lot of free and low-cost tools that you can use. If you're using Google Drive, OneDrive, you can document, you can use those as another form to back up actual documents that are not on your physical device. iCloud, Dropbox, Dropbox has been around for a while. You can set them up for weekly and automatic backups as well. But in addition to setting up backups, go in every so often, even though it says set up weekly automatic backups. I also go in on maybe a weekly or monthly basis and actually click on those backups to see, one, if it's still syncing, two, what is actually backing up so that I don't wait until something happens to ensure that those backups are being backed up correctly, or the backups are what I actually need to back up, right? Because what I found, I've done a lot of incident response projects and programs, and you will be surprised that people that spend a lot of money just to protect their infrastructure, it's the very, small things like backing up your backups, where you're backing them up, ensuring those backups are not corrupt, ensuring that they're automatically backing up. Like, oh, I thought I set this up, it was supposed to happen automatically. And then we look and say, well, the last backup known to date was 6 months ago. And then something happens and you're like, wow, I really needed that important document or that important application, and now it's gone. So those are just low cost things. Again, it's about a mindset. It's about creating, habits to be able to put into place so that you're having this cyber vigilant approach to when you're thinking about your small business and protecting it as well. Next slide. Again, social media, it's a great tool and resource. I use it. But the things that we can do in place, even as a solo entrepreneur, that doesn't cost anything. It's just about creating, better habits, oversharing business details, your location, your finance, your travel plans. This one is very tricky because I know we live in a culture where we want to share everything. We want people to see us, enjoying life, and we want people to see, different side of us as we're growing as a small business owner. But make sure that you don't share certain things about your location or finances or your travel plans, because you'll be surprised that although things that you may consider innocent, which you're sharing, can really lead to someone using that information to do social engineering attacks. Majority of the attacks that you're seeing from a lot of these larger organizations is from people just oversharing information or giving out information to people that were from unknown sources that appear to be from a trusted place. And so just be vigilant about those things as we're sharing online. Use two-factor authentication if you're using platforms like Instagram, Facebook, or even LinkedIn. And then when possible, and I know this is hard as a solo entrepreneur, to keep your business and personal accounts separate where possible. Sometimes you can use them to integrate your life, because I know for myself, I'm not a really big social media person. So me having two accounts is like, that's a lot for me to do. So I do have some accounts where they're both business and personal accounts, but I'm very, I don't share certain things that could be, that will be considered oversharing, like things that I discussed earlier. If I do travel, sometimes what I'll have a rule of thumb is I will post the pictures from the travel when I return back. It could be maybe a week afterwards, and I'll talk about the great time that I have, but I don't post in real time. So I don't want anyone to know that, oh, she's not in this location, she's not here, she's not doing that, right? Because if someone is trying to do something nefarious, now I've given out my location. So just keep those things in mind as you're sharing on social media. Next slide. Again, create a simple cyber routine, a weekly checklist. The checklist can include everything from checking the backups. If it's time for you to update your password, check for those updates, review your login of your devices, backing up your files, scanning for viruses. I know we didn't really touch on this earlier, but another way that a multi-layered approach to protecting your devices is using some of the anti-malware things that you can use, antivirus software. Some have it already embedded. Like I know Microsoft Defender has things already embedded. I've been using Norton for years, but there's plenty out there that you can use. Do your research. And sometimes they're very low cost. Sometimes you can get a bundle if you're a small business and you're using one for antivirus and one for anti-malware. They all have a bundle deal. It could be a couple of dollars a month. Those are investments. If you can change one password monthly, these are just habits. And sometimes that's not, feasible. But if it's something that you have, critical things that you want to change those as much as possible so that you're just keeping a simple cyber routine. You're developing great cyber habits to be able to keep yourself super vigilant, because I know we're wearing so many hats as a solo entrepreneur, as a solo business owner. And so the weekly checklist, the updates, I put it actually as a reminder in my calendar as something to remind me to do on a weekly basis as well. And I have like a checklist where I just check it out. And those things that you can do as well. Next slide. Again, final takeaways: cyber threats are real and they're growing. There are small steps that you can use every day, which will equal big protection. Consistency is better than complexity. So, with your peace of mind, think about, I'm a small business owner. I have a million hats. I'm doing a million different things. What can I do today to keep myself cyber vigilant, cyber safe, to be able to think about some of these things that I want to protect my small business from, or myself, because you are this business. If you're a solo entrepreneur, you got this. Stay encouraged. There's always there's a lot of resources and tools out there to help you kind of navigate this, so you're not alone. And small steps are the greatest thing that you can do, the greatest weapon. If you're not doing anything today, think about what I can do this week, what I can do better next week. Put together a checklist. I even will put together challenges with other small business owners that will hold me accountable. What are you doing to keep you safe? What tools are you using that has helped you? Create a community of resources and folks around you to help you kind of navigate as your small business grows. Threats, you'll get more exposed to different type of threats, but there are things that are happening every day in real time, and it's small steps. It doesn't have to be very complex. Things that you can do that are low cost. Passwords are no cost. Investing in antivirus software, investing in maybe a OneDrive or a Dropbox to put your backups in, and then also setting those reminders to check those backups on a periodic basis so that you don't have to wait until something happens. Another thing that I do is that any of my critical assets or any of my critical vendors, I also keep that in a safe, a physical copy of it in a safe, so that if something happened, if I can't get on any of my devices, then I'll have a roster of numbers that I can call to help me get my items back online. Those are just small things that I do as well. We rely on technology a lot, but then there are certain things that you can do just to give yourself that peace of mind. Next slide. So any questions? I know we covered a lot in a very short period of time, but just some simple things that you can do in your everyday life, in your everyday small business environment. The threats are there. They're not changing. They're actually going to evolve over time. And so there are small things that we can do each and every day just to stay abreast of those things. I'm a little OCD when it comes to this stuff, because I'm in the space, but I even set Google alerts so I can, just keep abreast of the cyber threats that are, coming against different landscapes, or even some of my business that I actually do. So I do a lot of healthcare. So I'm always looking for cybersecurity and the latest risks that are involved with healthcare. So you can make it very specific to your industry as well. I get those alerts. I read through them. I'm always, trying to learn new things about cybersecurity. So even you taking time today to come out and learn something new, that's a small step that you're taking, and those steps also pay off. So those are things that you can do as well.
Thanks, Kiana. We do have a couple questions.
Okay.
And I know personally, I appreciate those examples you use since you're in the meat of it. I think, there's real world examples are really helpful.
Yes.
So the first question we had was, do you recommend having a separate personal and work email as well as two different phone numbers?
Yes. So, well, I'll say this. In the beginning, when I first started off my small business, and, budget and cost definitely play a role in the things that we are trying to navigate as a small business owner. If it's feasible, if it's something you can afford to do, yes. If it's not something that you can afford to do, I would put on different alerts or different things on my phone to ensure that I was still using it with the highest level of security. So what I mean by that, like, if I'm using this as my business phone and my personal phone, then I will protect certain apps that was within my phone because I'm using that for business. I would put extra passwords or pins on that as well. I would put on ways if I lost the device, then I can be able to retrieve it, or I can erase it in real time as well. So there's two ways to look at it. There's a cost factor, but then there's also that security portion that we talked about. So just keeping that in mind, if it's more feasible for you to have two phones and you can afford to do that, then by all means do that as well. But still put the same type of stringent cybersecurity controls in the event that you do use it for both personal and business, if that makes sense.
Next question was, are cloud storage solutions like Google Drive, OneDrive, iCloud, and Dropbox qualified as private servers for saving files that are contractually required to be saved on private servers?
That's a loaded question. So yes and no. There are, depending on the type of files that you're trying to save, if there are regulatory bodies that outline what security levels you need in order to classify something as a backup for a private server, you need to adhere to those regulatory requirements. For example, I have clients that have uh, financial regulatory requirements, and they were using things like a OneDrive or a Google Drive. The requirement that they were governed by, the governing body said that they could use those as their backup solution if, one, it was on a separate server or machine that also had additional security controls in place, meaning that device also had to have a form of encryption. It also had to be password protected, and you also had to create an access control list on who had access to those files. So those are things that you have to keep in mind as you're bringing on clients. They have regulatory requirements for you to protect their files in addition to your files. So if you're just using it for yourself, I would even say, depending on what it is, if it's something like human resources data or your financial documents, even if you're using those cloud storage solutions, make sure you put some additional security controls, and then also only give certain access to those or to yourself. If it's just you, if you're bringing on someone, like even when I first started, I had my QuickBooks that I would put my, I would download my statements for my accountant. The accountant had a backup server that I would upload my statements so that they could do my taxes or if they had to run a report. they only had access to that drive and I only had access to that drive. So even if I was hiring someone as a professional consultant, I would also want to review how my information is being backed up. So I said all that to say that even if you're hiring people for, specific roles or just to do certain things like maybe you're accounting or you're outsourcing certain things, those are questions that you should ask as well. How are you backing up that information? How are you storing that information? And who has access to it? Because those are things that are very important as well. So that's just some tips that you can use as well, things that I did when I first started as well.
Great, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, what next question? How can I best protect my website as I have my contact information there while also trying to stay cybersecurity aware?
So that's fine. I mean, websites are supposed to be like your business card. Your business card has your address, it has your website, it has, information about you and your company. Now, you don't want to be so cyber vigilant that you keep out your customers. You want your customers to be able to contact you and have contact information. Just like the example of someone who asked earlier, should I have a separate phone number for my business and my personal? In this case, I would probably have a separate phone number. Even Google Voice has phone numbers that you can use that will actually ring to your personal device. That's another thing that you can do. If you're using one device or a phone, you can have a separate number if you don't want people contacting you personally. There also have virtual assistants that you can use they're very low cost. That can be someone that can answer your phones or maybe send it over to you if it needs to be escalated. And then you can also put a schedule on your phone, or even I only have known phone numbers that can actually call my phone. And then if it's important, I'll call them back. They'll leave a message and then I can vet the phone number. So there's things that you can put into place that give you habits. So it's all about, creating safety habits and a mindset that you're comfortable with sharing, so that you can be public facing, but you don't want just nefarious or anyone's or even, telemarketers or anyone just calling you just to get access to you. So I hope to answer your question.
Those unknown callers do not get through.
They do not get through.
Let's see, next question. What are some reputable places to watch, follow for cybersecurity news and alerts?
Okay, so CISA.gov has some great alerts that they send out, especially as you're thinking about security alerts on actual for the entire infrastructure, meaning all of most of the US and some things abroad. They're always checking and sending the latest updates. So I have a subscription to them. We also have a great website that has a plethora of information as well. SBA also has great information. So there's a lot. I'll put together like a checklist of resources that we'll send out with the slides that can give you some access to some of these links. And I set them up as Google alerts so that I get them in real time so I can see what's happening. Just because one, it's the industry that I'm in, but also I just want to know what's going on. I want to know, what are the latest threats to our infrastructure so I can be able to put some things in place and change my policies and procedures as threats are ever so growing or coming out. And you'll be surprised some of the great information that you'll get just from these alerts. Wow, I didn't know that was happening, because a lot of things don't make it to mainstream news.
Yes, I was going to say that too. You have a great list that we can share, and it will be in the follow-up email that goes out within a day or two. We don't have any other questions right now, so we still have, I think, 25 minutes maybe to pick Kiana's brain. So if you have any questions you can think of, go ahead and drop them into the Q&A while we still have Kiana on with us.
Yes. And there's some other things I'll just talk about quickly too. I talked about some like budget-friendly bundles for your small business. I know that Zoho Vault and Avast Blast, and I'm not doing a commercial for any of them. It's just ones that I've heard in the past that people have used and it's great reviews, but do your research. And again, it's all depending on your budget and what your risk appetite is for, but it's about $4 a month per user. And if you're just your only user right now, that's a low cost way to be able to get certain level of security for yourself. NordPass and Microsoft Defender. If you're using Office 365, it's about $26 a month, but they also have some productivity tools that are included with that as well that you can use for your small business as well. Those are just a few. We'll put that again in the resource sheet that we send out with the slides. Very low cost, as you can see. Nothing was over $20, $30, under $30 that you can use for your small business. And there are some things that are very competitive in nature that you can also do your research and find out, but those are things that you can implement in your small business as well that are very low cost to you. I always like to start with things that are free or complimentary. And then just putting some things in place, even if you want to just set a policy or set alerts or set up a backup schedule, use things like a OneDrive or just to do backups so that if something does happen, you can have something that you can recover to. Those are things that you can do that are very low cost.
Here's one. So I'm going to say this question and I'm going to follow it up with something before you answer, Kiana. Okay.
Okay.
What's the best way to train my employees? So I know we already have a webinar recording up on our website about this. We probably have multiple. So Lisa, I'm going to ask you if you'll send an email to help@virginiasbdc.org to remind me, and I'll send you that link to that recording. And then also, Kiana, I'll go ahead and let you answer.
Yes. So best way that you can train your employees, this is a rule of thumb for myself. And even when I started off, I was my first employee, and then I started onboarding employees as well. From day one, as a part of your in-processing, I went over, I had a checklist. It was very much about rules of behaviors of, if I give you this mobile device, these are expected things that I need you to do on this device. One, you have to change your passwords on a monthly, quarterly basis. You cannot, if you decide if you wanted to travel with the device, you can't leave the device in your car, or you can't leave it somewhere where it's not locked up. You had to have encryption on the laptop. You had to put a pin on the laptop. There were just a very simple one sheet that was outlined what I needed you to do in order to protect that mobile device, that cell phone, that iPad, or that laptop that I gave you. And then on a weekly basis in our staff meetings, if we had a thing we called the cyber tip of the week, we would go over cyber tip of the week. So it's about having it a part of your culture. So it's because it's ever growing, it's always changing. You want to stay abreast of it, so it's not a one and done type of situation. So I said all that to say is that yes, there are some links that we can send you that you can get them to do just initial cyber training, but making sure that you have something set out, wrote out, this is what I need you to do to stay cyber safe is very important. Have that done as soon as they're in process on a weekly, monthly, whenever you do a staff meeting, make sure that you're continuing talking about cybersecurity. And then I also have an open door policy. If someone sees something, say something. I'm using the DHS slogan, but it's very true. If you see a phishing email or you see something that looks suspicious, call, text, let me know, let your supervisor know, so that we can have these things to look out for as well.
Let's see. So we have one person asking if you would take a live question. Do you mind doing that?
No, not at all.
Okay, let me see if I can unmute them. Let's see. Oh. Okay. Luis, if you can hear me, go ahead. You should be good to speak now.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, hi. So my question is kind of long, so I was like, let me just see if I can say it instead of typing it out.
Okay.
But I've just launched a new primary care practice in the Richmond area, and I'm concerned, like I guess everybody else on the call, about the threats from, cybersecurity, malware, and things like that, especially since we're going to be handling a lot of sensitive data, patient
Yes.
demographic information, and things like that. So I've been trying to search around, for a small managed IT company that can help set up some barriers on my devices.
Okay.
I purchased them myself and installed them, downloaded the software, set them up myself, right? But that's all I can do.
Okay. So
So
that's
I've been,
something that's good. That's a good
you know,
start.
yeah, I've
Give
been
yourself
trying
some
to,
credit for that.
yeah, but I reached out to one person, got a call back, but he said, you're still kind of small.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get to like six, I think he said 5 or 6 devices,
Mm-hmm.
then reach out. But my question is, do you have any recommendations on any smaller practices that may want to take on a client like myself? I do have 2 desktops and 2 laptops.
So
Um,
yes, and yes, I definitely have some recommendations, but I can also give you some recommendations on things that you can do yourself.
okay,
Because, and I know, a lot of small businesses that you probably contact will say the same thing. They want you to have more of a scale so that they can, it may not be cost effective for them just to do 1 or 2 and be done, if that makes sense, right? So
right. That's what he
because
said.
yes, because you're handling PHI data, that's again, we talked about regulatory bodies, there's HIPAA, there's different things that you have to do to stay compliant. And so I would start with making sure that you definitely have an understanding of the regulatory bodies that give you direction on how you should handle sensitive and PHI information. So that's where I would start first. Second, because I'm sure it's going to have things like you need to have your devices encrypted. You're going to need to have some type of access control list, just some things off the top of my head. You're also going to have put certain security controls on and different technical safeguards. You're going to, all your employees, including yourself, have to undergo some type of HIPAA training as well, in addition to some other security safeguards. And so if you also send your email, I can send you like a checklist of some things that you can do yourself, um,
Okay.
that can kind of help you. Even as you're wanting to hire a security consultant, I'll also send you kind of a 1-pager on things you should ask them as well. I know they have all these questions for you, but there's things that you need to know about their credentialing and their expertise, because I don't want you to spend money that you don't need to spend and someone's
Right.
sending you a bill or trying to charge you, for things that you could do yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yep. So yeah, so we can get some stuff out to you.
Yeah, if
Thank you.
I dropped in the chat, this is for everyone. Lewis, I'm going to go ahead and mute you again, but this email that's in the chat is what you'll use, and we'll get you taken care of.
So yeah, but thank
Okay.
you, Lois. That was a
Thank you.
great question, and I appreciate you. So yeah, you just taking the first steps here by even coming to this, and even reaching out to a consultant. Those are great. Consultants that's what they're there for. I always tell people, I do cyber. I don't do accounting. If you ask me anything about numbers and a spreadsheet, I'm going to say, oh no, that's not my expertise. That's why I have been having the same CPA for years, because that is what they do. So when in doubt, if there's something that is beyond your scope and you have the budget to do it, definitely do it. But again, if you're hiring a consultant to do something, just like I hired my CPA consultant, I wanted to know if he, how many years he was in practice prior to me, him taking on me as a client. I also checked his references. I also wanted to know, did he understand? I do a lot of government contracting, which, I have to do a lot of reports and a lot of reporting. Would he be able to support me in that? Did he have experience in that? Right? Because that was very key. I didn't want to bring someone on that, as I was growing, could not handle the capacity of my growth. So you definitely got to think about that too, because if you want to start off with someone that's going to support you in your IT needs and your cyber needs, you want to make sure that they also can help you as you grow, because the goal is growth, right? So I know you want to grow and navigate into that space. And so, yeah, so those are some things that we can help you with just to help you get started.
Thanks, Kiana. We have another question. Are there certain small business industries that are more susceptible to cyber threats?
Great question. I would say all small businesses, but there are some that are more popular than others, right? So anything that's dealing with sensitive information, credit card information, hacking groups all have goals, and sometimes their goals are, it could be just disruption. It could just be chaos. It doesn't necessarily have to be taking down an organization. It could be just something simple like, I can't get to this larger organization, but I know that this small business, it supports them. So if I disrupt this small business, then I can disrupt a function in their business, right? So I have seen some small businesses that are like, I'm a flower shop. Why would someone want to hack me? Well, you take credit card information. You also have clients that you create beautiful floral arrangements for that also is in a secure facility. So if I wanted to know, like maybe the operating hours of that secure facility, but I know that your flower shop delivers to them weekly. If I wanted to get access to said flower shop, I can use that as a way to get access. So hacking groups or cyber criminals, it may not make sense to you why they would even target this small business, but they all have different motivations and different reasons. So there's things that you should put in place regardless of the functions of your small business.
A follow-up to that question. Lori's saying that she's in AI consulting. She's curious if these emerging businesses are a new target for cyber.
Hey, oh my goodness. Yes. So any evolution of any technology, as you start seeing a lot of people with the deep fakes, you're starting to see people, a lot of new things that you see, you're like, I see their mouth moving, but it doesn't necessarily look like them, or something's off about the video. With the evolution of AI, and listen, I've been in technology for 25 years. I'll date myself. I remember being on active duty, and we went from mainframe computers to, we were giving everyone personal devices, and we were giving everyone computers. New threats emerged from that because now you had a lot of users that was probably not as tech savvy or necessarily didn't even want to embrace the technology, right? And so there's always a nefarious, underworld, so to speak, that is always trying to get access to information. And as we bring in new things, new threats emerge as well. And so even though you're in AI and it's amazing and you're just doing consulting, over time, depending on what clients you have, depending on what you're developing, it can become very attractive to someone that is, or a group, because they're hacking groups, there are cyber criminal groups. It is like, think of it as like when people, you'll see enterprises that emerge from criminal behavior, and you're like, this is like a credit, like gift cards. I remember one year gift cards where they were like on an all-time high because there were scams that were going crazy. Like you would get a gift card for a holiday gift, and you will go to use that gift card and you couldn't use it. And you go back to that store and they're like, oh, is this like the 10th gift card? Because it was a targeted incident that a group decided, we're going to target this local CVS and take all the gift cards and use it for nefarious things. You were just innocent. You walked in, bought a gift card. You didn't know that this enterprise was working behind for gift cards. So I said all that to say is that it may not make sense in the greater scheme of why people do the things that they do. And sometimes, again, I always say this, everything is not always financial. Sometimes it's just to cause disruption and even chaos. So I'm gonna get off my soapbox, but I just wanted to give that as an example.
Well, I'm going to keep you on the soapbox for just a second because we have a question. Can ChatGPT searches cause cybersecurity risks?
So yes and no, because I always say to anyone, it's a great tool and resource. But again, have you ever met ChatGPT? Right. So Think of ChatGPT as any other stranger on the street, right? That will give you great advice. If you met someone that was, you're sitting at a bus stop and you met someone and they just, sparked up a conversation, you wouldn't use that conversation to say, well, here's my social security number and here's where I live. And I have, my dog's name is so-and-so. And, I go this place every Wednesday. So again, use the functions of AI or any type of, and I don't want to just, there's plenty of AI tools out there outside of ChatGPT, but that's just an example. Treat it as a wonderful stranger that wants to give you this great information, a wealth of information, but it only can have information that you give it. So be very cautious about what you give it. If it's not something that you want to be used for different reasons or different forms, if it's something very sensitive in nature to you, or it's very sensitive to maybe your clients or anything in your business, even when I use ChatGPT or any of the tools, I'll change, instead of me saying I need information about my IT company, I have like another company name, and then I'll use the question, but maybe for an industry that's very similar to it, so that I'm not giving out all the information, because what I really want is for it to give me what I need to be able to use the information using my own intellect as well. So those are just things that I would say. Treat it as a wonderful stranger that is trying to be helpful, but you don't know them, so you wouldn't give them, personal information about yourself.
That's great.
Mhm.
Okay, so we had an attendee share. So back when we were talking about training employees, this attendee mentioned in QuickBooks Online, there are different access levels for users. Then you can track what each user does through an audit log.
That's amazing. Yeah. So again, we talked about that, right? If you are using certain applications, most of the application also have embedded security controls that you can use to dictate who has access. I love an access control list. I love scheduled times. I don't even allow you to have access to certain things at certain times, because why are you up at 2 a.m. in the morning trying to get access to something when you don't start working to 10 a.m.? Especially if there's core hours, there's business hours. I'm always checking audit logs for that reason, especially if it's not something that's in your job scope. If you're in HR, why are you looking in QuickBooks? Why do you even have access to QuickBooks? How did you get access to QuickBooks? So yes, so use the embedded security controls that are within the applications. They come free of charge. They're there to give you a level of security as well. And sometimes if you read some of the privacy policies, they'll also state that they want you to use some of the embedded security controls to keep yourself secure as well. So that's just a tip as well. But yes, great resource. I love QuickBooks Online. I love the security features that are embedded in them. Use them.
And then someone's asking about Copilot.
Love Copilot. Again, AI is amazing. It's here. I had a conversation with a colleague yesterday over lunch, and he had a lot of concerns about AI, and I said, we had concerns about when we went from mainframe computers to personal computers, we survived. We had concerns about social media when it first started, and we survived. Has there been some things? There's always going to be bad actors that mess it up for everyone. There's always going to be nefarious things and criminal activity before the start of time. Even back in years prior to even us having a tech boom, there was things happening before a tech boom happening. Things are going to happen is what I'm getting at. And so it's a great resource. It's a great tool. I would not use it for anything that is sensitive in nature. Even I'm gonna tell you, I'm OCD when it comes to cybersecurity. I have Alexa all through my house. Love Alexa. She's amazing. When I'm having a sensitive conversation or I'm on a business call, I unplug Alexa. Why? Because Alexa is listening. Right now, she's listening because I just said her name, right? So again, same thing. If I'm having a sensitive or private conversation, I turn off my phone. Why? Because there's apps on my phone There are people that are collecting information, and sometimes they're only collecting information maybe for their additional business model / revenue model that is used to collect data that may not be harmful to you, but I don't want you to hear anything that is sensitive in nature. So there's no coincidence if you are doing a Google search and then all of a sudden you start getting marketing ads for something that you're looking for, right? For that reason as well. I put on spam features within my Office 365. I put on certain different type of security features. So again, it may be a little OCD, but those are things that you should keep in mind. The AI is here. It's not going anywhere. It's great. I love Alexa. She helps me if I need to know the time, I need to know the weather, I need to know about the traffic pattern before I leave. She even sends me great reminders for my grocery list, but I don't want her to listen to my private information. So things to keep in mind.
Very true. All right. So we're about at the end of our time. Do you have some last words of wisdom? Although those were very good words you just shared.
Yes. So just, I mean, again, think about cyber. To me, it's like developing a great habit of things that's going to protect you in your personal life, especially as a solo entrepreneur. And because as a solo business owner, if you are the business and what you do affects the business, keeping those practices in your personal business lives, because they sometimes may collide, is very instrumental into you staying safe online, to you keeping your clients' information safe as well, and for your evolution and your growth, because we all want you to grow and we want to be able to say, even though I started off as a one-person company, 10, 15, maybe even next year, I may be onboarding my first employee. So having those habits now, creating that security first culture is very important to sustained, because as we saw some of the statistics about small business, micro businesses, sometimes they cannot survive a cyber attack, right? It can be loss of reputation, loss of revenue, sometimes even loss of, important data, sensitive data. Maybe you've been working on something for, a very long time, and then something crashes and you don't have access to that anymore. And that could be your very lifeline. So, using these protection mechanisms are great to be able to safeguard yourself and your small business. And so, yeah, so I'll just end it right there.
Great. Yana, thank you so much. And thank everyone who joined us today. As a reminder, you will receive an email with a link to the recording and to the slides and to the extra package that we put, I didn't put it together. Yana put together with all the cybersecurity links that are very helpful. If you would like to sign up for upcoming webinars or access recorded webinars, please visit virginiasbdc.org/training. This webinar and other SBDC resources are designed to be used in collaboration with your local SBDC advisors. You can sign up for a free and confidential session by emailing help@virginiasbdc.org or via our website. And we do hope to see you all at our next session. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.